Greetings, friends, and welcome to a sort of special episode of Kirby Russia. Special because I've come back from the Far East Economic Forum. Yes, I attended that. I feel very privileged, but also very feel very privileged to be bringing back all the diseases that were spread from our international guests because I'm not feeling very well. So, for this live stream, I want to talk about the forum itself. Kind of my impressions of it, and we'll break down some of the news from the forum because why not? That's probably kind of the most important thing. So we should probably start off with maybe more my personal impressions because that won't take too long. Excuse me. There's going to be a lot of excuse me during this live stream. I've been to the Far East now. This was like the third or fourth time. And it was kind of nice to be there yet again. But the problem was I was there in a work context. So I went there to be with the International Russophile movement, which meant, excuse me, which meant I was spending a lot of my time helping out like the foreign VIP guests with various problems. Probably the most interesting of which was that everyone's favorite and most famous journalist of Brazilian origin and one of the biggest voices in promoting BRICS over the planet, Pepe Escobar, he lost his migration card, which is something I'd recommend you foreign people never do. Never lose your migration card. So the first two days of this forum, my main mission was to help Pepe get that new migration card, which was going to one police station like the first day we got there, and they gave him this document that said that he sort of acknowledged that he lost the little piece of paper, which allowed him to stay at the hotel. Because when he came, noticed that the migration card wasn't there, and he claims that the people at the Moscow airport actually lost it because they were very not very careful with his passport, and he didn't notice. And I believe him. I'm sorry, I kind of worded that as if I don't believe him. I do. So anyways, when he got to the hotel and he'd have the migration card, he couldn't stay there. So we had to at least go to the police and sort of file that we lost it the first day. And then the next morning, wake up early and file to actually get a new one, which was very gracious of them. I think they made some special exceptions for people who are at this forum who are very important, because normally on Wednesdays, those kind of, I don't know what you want to call them, the organs of power, as they might say in Russian, usually don't take visitors or appointments. It's sort of like Wednesday's the day to get the stuff done. So they took our appointment, which was very nice, and after about 3 hours of signing this, fingerprints this, fingerprints that, photo this, photo that, he got a new one and he was able to go forward. There was also a bit of a crisis where I had to help basically the staff of one of the VIP Chinese guests. They brought a ton of cameras with them, and they weren't allowed to bring those cameras into the event. And they were kind of like, now I have a lot of camera, nowhere to put it. What do we do? So that was also an adventure, having to kind of deal with this expensive camera equipment that had nowhere to go. Sadly, at the event, they didn't really think about what would happen if people tried to bring things in that they couldn't take in. And the event is located at a university, and the university, is very blocked off for security reasons. So essentially, if you couldn't take something inside with you, there was nowhere to put it because the university is on what's called Russian Island, and it's I wouldn't say isolated, but there's nothing else there besides the university that I could see. Maybe there is, and I'm missing it. But essentially, if you can't bring something into the event, that means you don't go in the event. Or that thing just has to be, I don't know, left on the street. So I had to resolve that issue. That took a lot of time and effort. What I ultimately did was wound up calling the tour bus company that gave us the bus for all the VIP foreigner guests, and had the bus drive back just to put this camera equipment on the bus, and then it drove away, and he got it later. Because eventually in the evening, the bus drove all the way back and picked up all the people. So as you can see, some of my impressions from this event were more work-related. I just thought some of those things would be interesting, sort of like, Tim, what were you doing there? Because I didn't see you speak anywhere, and of course, unfortunately, I didn't get to speak. That was kind of a downer. When I go to an event, I really want to speak there, but, sometimes you have to play the role that you're given. There aren't many, from what I've seen, there aren't many foreign people who can translate as well as I can. So What can you do? Oh, I also did some translations for interviews, including the Prime Minister of India, which was kind of an honor, getting to meet someone of that level. Very polite man. And as you saw from the videos, I got to go on what I was referred to by Pepe Escobar as the multipolar yacht, which was sort of the yacht party for all the super VIP foreign guests that we all took there. Right. So I had a good time in that sense. But let's talk about these big forums and all that, because like the Kazan summit's coming up and all this. Like, what's the point of this? Why do people do this? Why do they pay to have people from all these different countries, especially from Asia, come to Vladivostok to drive out to this island? And when I say drive out to the island, that's because there's a bridge. So it's not a contradiction. Drive out to this island, which is kind of far out, and then do stuff. What's the point? Well, the first thing is I think it just sends the general message of, well, it sends a lot of messages. The first one is it really combats the whole Russia's isolated message, so it serves that function. But also it seems like really, for some reason with Russians, I don't know, it's kind of like how they say with Japanese business people, they can only tell each other the truth when they're drunk. And I think for some reason, Russians are really only good at sending a good message to other people in other cultures when they're in an official context. I think everyone might be sober, but they kind of have this more, I don't know, openness and optimism, and I think they like to show these people a good time. One of the funny parts, though, about showing people a good time is the first night when I was helping Pepe get his new migration card, this really weird guy who may or may not have been on drugs there was also trying to get stuff done. What he wanted was he was not the accused person in a crime. He seemed to be the victim of a crime, and he was trying to get a free taxi ride home. I didn't know that was the case, but apparently there's a budget where if you're not the accused in a crime and the police have to interview you, then you get a taxi ride home on the government's dime. Well, isn't that nice? But it was taking him a long time to get it, in his opinion. And so one of the things is, Pepe was kind of like, what does he keep talking about? What is he talking about? And I was kind of like, we'll talk about this later, because you never know when someone speaks English or they're paranoid, and even if you're not talking about them, they still think you are. So it's kind of like, let's talk about this later. And the thing is apparently he got stabbed in the arm. So the thing is, he's talking on his cell phone. It's like, my cell phone's running out of electricity. My arm's fucked up. My arm is fucked up. Get me a taxi, baby. Get me a taxi. And there's a very sort of like ghetto gangster way of speaking. But he was also tiny. He was like 5'4". If that's in centimeters, that's like, I think less than 175 centimeters. I forget. Maybe even less than that. Maybe, like, I don't know, 171, something like that. That's real short for a man, isn't it? Tiny guy. But then I noticed, I was like, yeah, I just thought that his pants had like a style to them, but I was like, the one side of his pants are soaked in blood. I was like, oh, okay. So that gave Pepe a little window into maybe not the nicest people in Russia. But anyways, I just thought that was kind of random. But at the event, anyways, the point of doing it is to put a lot of people in contact. It's also networking. Like, there's a lot of just getting people in contact, getting people the time to have face-to-face conversations, because one thing you'll love and sometimes hate in Russia is that they really like to do things with face-to-face conversations. And I do think there is some value to that, and people respond better to it, although it is a pain in the ass when everyone who wants to offer me something or potentially work on some project, they always want to meet face-to-face. And they always want to meet face-to-face, at the very best, downtown. And yeah, boy, am I sick of that shit. But when you are invited to this event, and especially if other people pay for your ticket there, meeting face-to-face is easy because you're already there. So that's cool. I think it also probably, for especially people like the Indian ambassador, it really gave him the chance to actually speak more to the Russian people on a bigger level. Because, man, I translated a few interviews for that guy. That guy did a lot of interviews. A lot. And also, I think that also gives a good signal, about message sending and making people feel good and all this to build better relations. If I were the Indian ambassador, I'd feel like a frickin' superstar. He was treated like 5 Mick Jaggers glued together. I guess for you younger people, 5 Taylor Swifts glued together. Everyone wanted to hear his opinion and his thoughts, and yeah. So popular guy, real popular guy. So yeah, it definitely gives people the chance to communicate. And for me, I think one of the most unique things. I think I filmed YouTube shorts about this that I'll release soon. But for me, probably like the most unique thing is I finally got to actually meet people from North Korea. And one of them spoke fantastic Russian. Like, he speaks Russian at the level I do, maybe even better. Unbelievable. And for me personally, it was kind of like, well, you'll see this in the YouTube shorts, but I might as well tell you here because you're listening to my voice in this live stream, that I kind of told them, I was like, look, I just hope you guys understand that the American people have really never been against you. I know that there's this sort of machine of lies that tries to twist everything or make up stuff about your country. Just told them, I never asked for any of this. None of us really asked for this. This is a war machine. And the answer he was kind of gave was good, but it actually was a little bit quintessential North Korean. And if you notice, the North Koreans are very stern in their attitudes, even when they're presented by the Western media or by themselves or by the Russian media. In fact, if you can speak Russian, the Russians, I think, they're probably one of the few people that can look at North Korea a bit more objectively, because they sort of are still kind of Soviet communism, and the Russians aren't 100% against that, not 100% for it either. So anyways, they're more neutral about them, so Russians present them in a more neutral light. But anyways, it's kind of like, the only people we really can't forgive are the people who directly committed, acts of horrors against us during the Korean War. We'll never forgive them. Well, it's kind of like, well, I can understand that, because the Russians are never going to forgive the Germans who did what they did during World War II. Other people got forgiven, but now who knows with the war that's happening now. There's definitely going to be some new grudges that are already deeply forged. But anyways, it was interesting. Every time I get the chance to meet like a new type of person that I've never met from anywhere, it's very interesting. But I think the guy, his Russian was so good. It wasn't native. It was pretty fluent, but he still had an accent. But I think he spent so much time in Russia that he was a little, how should I say this? He kind of, although Koreans look a lot different than Kazakhs, he kind of talked like a guy you'd meet in Kazakhstan in kind of the middle of nowhere. I don't know how to put it, but he kind of had that kind of, and that's not a diss, because the people who live in the middle of nowhere in Kazakhstan are very, or at least when I was there, were very well educated and pretty on the ball kind of people. But he had that kind of like Siberian vibe to him. I don't know how to put it, but not a Moscow vibe. But anyways, really interesting to be able to have a really deep conversation with someone from this, country that's sort of trapped behind walls. And again, on the one hand, because North Korea is still communist in a way, or we would describe it as communist in English. I think they would, say that they're Juche, or Chuche, as it's said in Russian, that they have their own sort of unique thing, which is fine, whatever. I don't like to get into battles of terminology, but their system is definitely different. And on the one hand, their system is kind of closed itself off. But if you were completely sanctioned by the whole world and saw your only trade partner, self-destruct in the 90s, and you had to go through this sort of period where you're completely surrounded, the United States has been threatening you with destruction for generations, I'd be a little bit closed off and paranoid too, in their opinion. So I can kind of understand. But regardless of whether it's their fault they're closed off or whether they've been forced to being closed off, they are closed off, and it was kind of interesting to talk to some of them about the issues of the day. However, they didn't really talk too much about internal matters of North Korea. They were more kind of interested in perceptions of things in the media and all that, where I'm an expert. So, so that was cool. And And as you go around this event, you would see that there were lots of basically all the big Russian businesses that you could think of were there. All the big banks were there. All the big oil companies, all the big this and the big that. Some Chinese companies were there. In fact, some of my friends got us sort of kicked out of the Hongqi or Hongxi, depending on how you want to say it, car manufacturer zone, because they made the weird decision, or were forced to. Basically, all the media, like Russian media, was in one location. So all their sort of booths were near each other. Good idea. Why they put this car company there in the middle of it, I don't know. But one of the things about all the Russian media booths is they were very fascistic about their booths. They were like, unless we're doing an interview with you, how dare you sit here? And there was kind of nowhere to sit. This is a problem with all these events, be it the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, be it the Far East one, be it kind of any of these. There's never anywhere to frickin' sit. I'm not sure if that's on purpose to make people walk around and interact, or it's just not thought of. But Hongqi had a lot of places to sit. And so people just started to use Hongqi as like or Hongxi, again, it means red flag in Chinese. That's one thing I found out from my Chinese friends, so you can look that up. Red flag cars, China's second oldest car manufacturer, and they are very pretty. They have a business look, and I think, in my personal opinion, I think they are much more stylish and more business looking than BMW or Audi. But that's just me. Maybe that's a sinful thing to say in Moscow, but that's my opinion. So anyways, yeah, so like everyone started sitting there, and they had so many people taking up all their sort of zone that I guess they felt they couldn't do any business. So they kind of kicked everyone out and stopped letting people sit there, which is hilarious. But at the same time, from what I noticed, there weren't too many people that interested in these, major car investments. One thing that I did see, and of course, but one of the other things where I thought is, with this time, is near the end, even though I was kind of starting to feel sick, I really wanted to finally, because I didn't have time to go back to the hotel. I was waiting for Putin to give his speech, which I ultimately didn't watch, because by that point I started to feel really bad. But during this sort of nether period where I feel a little bad, but I can hack it, I can make it, I couldn't. I kind of walked around and actually wanted to try to talk to some of these people at the booths, because I kind of don't understand their purpose. It's like, I understand when they have these very official signings, like companies will sort of work something out, and then they'll have like this really official signing, and all the media is already there. They walk over. You have like every Russian media, some foreign media. They take 50 million pictures of the signing. Good PR, that I get. Or the opposite. Maybe they actually do want to have like a really important Chinese business person fly out to this cool event and actually do the negotiations at the event. That I get. But all the booths are always set up as if random people could walk up to there and like do something. That's kind of like, what could I randomly just walk up to Sparebank and say or do or offer? I don't know. But at least one of the booths I remember was something about like some sort of international games. Not the BRICS games, that I'm aware of. But some other kind of company that wants to organize international sports competitions outside of the Olympics. Logical. And you know me, so I went up there to sort of proselytize American football to the best of my ability. But all the girls who worked there, I think, were there just to be pretty, because they were stunned. They were sort of taken aback that someone had a serious, request, because they were all young, okay? So the old man here is over 40, and all these girls were like 25 or younger. Which makes me think they don't actually do much within the organization, or again, they're just there to be pretty. And so I started asking like serious organizational questions and how we can integrate American football. And they're just kind of like, just go to our site and file a formal request. So I guess that's what you get when you actually walk up to the booths. I did that for a couple other media things, but I thought that one was very telling, because I don't really see what the purpose of that is at all. So I don't quite know. One thing that I did understand the purpose of is all the local manufacturers of especially ice cream were there, and like yogurt and stuff in Vladivostok. So you had unlimited ice cream and yogurt to eat, which was dangerous for me, because the ice cream was actually really good. They had this one that was supposed to taste like some kind of like tropical alcoholic drink that I've never heard of. It was some like lipiti-buchi-di-di-di. I don't know what the hell that means. It could be French, it could be Arabic, because it was written in Russian letters and weird. But it was like neon orange and delicious, but it didn't taste like oranges. But anyways, it was really good ice cream. I had like 3 of those. But anyways, so I still am a little bit of a mystery as to what these booths represent. Except like the media, I get it because they have their own space where they have cameras set up where they can do interviews. That is logical. You have these huge banks. They have these signing ceremonies and stuff, and beyond banks, and big negotiations with VIP guests. That I get. Some of the other booths, like again with the honky cars, I didn't of all the time, because like again they were in the center of the media zone for again reasons I won't understand. Like I didn't see one person talk to them about actual business, which is bizarre. I don't know. So sorry, honky. But I don't think it was us that was blocking your business. I think maybe it wasn't the right event, or they just wanted to have that booth there just to advertise. Because a lot of the expensive like taxis for people were honky. I noticed that I shouldn't say on camera which ones, but certain Russian people who are famous enough that you'd even know who they are, all were using had drivers driving honkies. So maybe there's some sort of connection there, some kind of like advertising deal. I don't know, but that's I'm not an expert in the automotive industry, so what can I tell you? But anyways, I want to talk about then on the more serious side of things, some of the things that, and I should probably, we'll talk about some of the issues that were actually brought up at this event. Again, there's a lot of places you could get news, but you can't really get insider info, so I thought I'd start with the insider info first. So let's take a look at this. So Putin, whose speech I didn't get to see because I was too sick, President Putin highlighted the progress already made in vastly improving the motorway system from Moscow to Kazan that was completed last year, and the boost will bring domestic tourism. They're also going to build the first true high-speed trains, and it should be something like St. Petersburg, Moscow, Kazan. Well, St. Petersburg, Moscow, Nizhny Novgorod, Kazan. So that's also coming. The more highways, the better. All of the highways around Vladivostok were magnifique. Putin forecasts Russian Far East to become focus for international development. He's right. Vladimir Putin says a deep water port could be developed alongside Belarusian and Chinese firms, as well as nuclear power plants infrastructure. I think what he means by deep water port is that maybe the actual port of Vladivostok itself is overwhelmed, so they'll build another one? Is that what he means? If so, it's a good thing. It's kind of a good thing when your port is so busy that you have to build another one. We'll consider that a plus. That actually happened on Sakhalin Island. But this was before the war. The port of Yuzhny Sakhalinsk is just, well, at least when I was there 4 or 5 years ago, was so overwhelmed that maybe it's already built. I don't know. But they're like, we are completely overwhelmed. Everything is always 100% full. So he says Putin's domestic housing boom in the Far East. The number of housing projects being built in Russia's Far East has doubled in the last 5 years alone, President Putin highlighted. And you'll frickin' notice that around Vladivostok, because the population of Vladivostok officially isn't that big, but the city sure is. And there's a lot of stuff being built. And like I've mentioned before, some of you guys tell me about, Tim, but how do people do anything when mortgage rates are at 20% in Russia? How does anyone do anything? Not in the Far East. In the Far East, they're government subsidized. They're nowhere near 20%. And that's how. I think the Far East loans are like 2%, something like that. So there you go. So that's how the Russian government is getting people to move out far to the Far East. Putin encourages international transport investment in the Far East. Okay. Cargo flow on the northern sea. That's boring. Domestic flights and aircraft production is essential. By 2030, the number of passengers on domestic flights in the Far East should increase to 4 million. But Russia needs to expedite the production of high-quality domestic aircraft. Yes, and that's what the whole MS-21 aircraft is about. That's Russia's first 100% domestically made aircraft after the Sukhoi Superjet. The Sukhoi Superjet has been a successful project, but the Sukhoi Superjets are relatively small-sized, and they've only made 100 of them to date. Maybe they're 110 by now. Whereas the MS-21 is going to be the real, it's actually bigger than your standard, Boeings and Airbuses, which are something like inside the cabin, they're like 3.5 to 3.7 meters wide, whereas the MS-21 will be 4 meters wide. So it'll be extra fat for your comfort. So those are in the process of being built. And of course, the more domestic aircraft, the cheaper airplane tickets will become. Because spare parts will be way more affordable. Let's see, the Malaysian Prime Minister praises Vladivostok as a concert of cultures. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim celebrated how the vastness of Russia meets the boundless promise of Asia in Vladivostok. Very nice of him to say. I agree. He also says that the global south is on course to shape world economics. It is. So I agree. Russia is not pushing de-dollarization, Putin says at the EF. Vladimir Putin insisted it is not a case of Moscow actively pursuing a policy of ditching the US dollar for trade. Russia still uses USD for some settlements, but using common sense. I don't know about that. I think that's Putin playing some sort of like wordsmanship games, because the Russian media, when they talk about these issues inside of Russia, says the exact opposite. So when Russians are speaking and writing Russian, they don't say that. The Cold War mentality and double standards must be abandoned, says the Chinese vice president. We are ready to strengthen ties in order to provide for the security of the whole region and on a global scale. Chinese Vice President Hang Zheng said at the Eastern Economic Forum. Cool. Kiev failed with the Kursk incursion, says Putin. Gotcha. West tries to forget the 2014 coup that sparked the conflict, says Putin. Yes, they do. Because if they didn't forget about that, then you couldn't say Russian invasion. You see? We've no grievances with Pavel Durov, but many countries do, says Putin. President Putin explained that he only met the Telegram CEO once at a business forum many years ago and hasn't been in contact. Quote, I think the Russian government could have some questions for him, he said, explaining that there could be some entities or individuals who use the platform to damage the security of some countries. If they treat Durov like this, they should perhaps place others under house arrest, he added. There's a little Putin trolling. Here's the part about Putin saying that Kamala Harris is his favorite candidate. Thanks to the Saudi crown prince and others, we safely returned prisoners, Putin says. President Putin praised the work and goodwill of the Saudi crown prince Mohammed bin Salman, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and others for facilitating negotiations to exchange prisoners. Okay. The Gaza narrative needs to be corrected, says the Malaysian Prime Minister. So you see, everyone's got their messages to send. See what I was telling you? All these wonderful messages being sent at the forum. You know? So, yeah. And I think that's sort of all of our major highlights from RT at the forum that we're getting. So anyways, that's kind of the vibe of the forum. If I wouldn't have gotten sick, I would have had a great time there. My only real sort of gripe about the forum, I guess a real legit gripe, is that I was so busy that over a 72-hour period, I slept 9, maximum 10 hours. That's probably part of the reason I got sick. And even though we stayed at a casino hotel, I had no time to even play one game. Yeah, that kind of sucked. Anyways, there's always next year. So stay tuned, friends. The second part of our live stream for tonight is coming up right now.